Well, it's tournament morning. I'm ready to get started here. I'm going to do some voiceover because I'm working on a wireless microphone setup. I didn't have it turned on until about 7 minutes into the video. This was the winter classic of our kayak club. We had a winter series. This was the classic on March the 1st. It's at Greer's Ferry. I got a little bit of a late start. Had quite a drive in that morning. But nonetheless, I'm going to start fishing here. Look at that sunrise. Sometimes that's, why we do it, why we love fishing so much. It's to get up and to see creation and the sunrise. I'm going to start off here by throwing the Alabama rig around. These fish probably still in a winter pattern, thinking about pre-spawn, so I was throwing an Alabama rig. I wanted to fish some points and some main lake banks that were on the north side where the south wind and the sun have hit them all day, so that it would warm the water up. The week before this tournament, there was a big freeze and a snowstorm, and so I knew the water would be cold, and so I wanted to look for that warmest water possible. So I'm trying to throw this Alabama rig around. No bites, and so I'll switch over here to a Ned rig. This lake is pretty good. It's got a lot of rock, so it's pretty good for a Ned rig. Threw that around for a little bit. You see, I've got some isolated cover there, a little bit off the bank. No luck. So then I grab a little flat-sided crankbait. That's a Spro Little John. Start throwing that around, and about the third cast, I had some success here. There we go, I'm hooked up. I was kind of surprised. I've been fishing, a few minutes and really didn't know what to expect today. But that broke the ice. Not a big fish, but minimum length limit was 10 to measure, so I'm at least on the board here. Good way to break the ice is a spotted bass. Not very big, but I was glad to have it to get things started. So I threw that flat-sided crankbait around on this main lake bank for a little while longer. No more bites. I head on over to the point that's at the end of it. Started fishing the point, tried the crankbait, tried the Ned rig, and after fishing the Ned rig a little bit, I wanted to tie a little finesse jig on one of my other rods. I had something else on there. I think I had a Carolina rig tied on. So I threw my Ned rig out just to let it set, because sometimes bass will pick up a setting Ned rig that's on the bottom. So while I'm rigging up my jig here, I'm just letting my Ned rig set down there on the bottom, and who knows what can happen. So I've got like a green pumpkin jig. I had a red crawl trailer on it. I wanted to try that a little bit. So I got that ready. Now I'm gonna reel in my Ned rig so I can fish with my jig. I'm just gonna work the Ned rig back to the kayak. Watch what happens. This is pretty interesting. As you can see, a fish struck at my Ned rig as it was almost reeled all the way in. And so I just dropped my Ned rig right back down in the water, and it crushed it. This ends up being my best fish of the day. I've never had a bite swimming in Ned rig, so that was kind of new for me. But that kind of clued me in to saying that even though the water was cold on the sunny bank, that these fish were chasing a little bit. So that got me to thinking that probably these moving baits that I've got tied on, these crankbaits and other things, probably did pretty good today. So this is another spotted bass. I think it's 15 1/4 inches. It was fat, as you would expect them to be this time of year. Again, I was really happy to have this one. In our winter series, the limit is 3, and so we're trying to get 3 keepers. So that was number 2. So now I just need one more keeper to have a limit, and I'm happy anytime I can get a limit. So since I tied my jig on, I've got to throw it around a little bit, but at this point I'm convinced that they're going to hit a moving bait. Even though there's not much wind. Usually you need some wind for moving baits, but it's sunny, it's warming up this water, and I think it's activating these fish here on this bank a little bit. So I'm throwing my flat-sided crankbait around, and it doesn't take very long to get another bite. There we go. Now I know I'm onto something. Now I make a pretty silly mistake here. Watch what happens. As I'm boat flipping this fish, I knocked one of my rods off of my horizontal rod stager off in the water. I just gotten that horizontal rod stager. This is my first time using it, and it's got a strap that you can put over it so that that doesn't happen. And as you can see, I forgot to put the strap on, and so one of my rods has gone off in the water. But anyway, I've got my limit fish here. And I was glad to have it. Another spotted bass. This lake has got a good population of spotted bass, that's for sure. So then I decided that I'm going to try to get my rod back that's in the water. I know about where it is, so I get my Alabama rig out. I'm going to try to drag it around the bottom where I think my rod is. I do that for a little while, and I don't have any success getting my rod with the Alabama rig. So then I think, well, maybe if I run something down there with the trebles, like that crankbait, I can get it. Didn't have any luck. I switched down to a deeper diving crankbait so I could get down to the bottom quicker. And as I'm trying to, with a crankbait, get my rod back, notice what happens. See, I'm cranking really fast, trying to get my crankbait now to the bottom so I can get that rod. And while I'm cranking, I get another fish right there. I think I've lost my rod. This is not a very big one. And with everything going on with me losing my rod and everything, I just went ahead and took a picture of it. In my head, I didn't know what my smallest fish was. I don't think this one ended up helping me any, so.
a good one. $14. It's a largemouth there. Needs to be bigger than 13. I think it is though. $13.25. I don't know. I'm just taking pictures of all of them. That might help me. Won't help. a decent one. $14.5.
Well, what an eventful day that was. I was really glad to compete and to get a limit. I came in second place in the Winter Series Classic. I was about 4 3/4 inches short of first place, but all in all, that's a pretty good day. You know, I couldn't get a kicker fish, and as you guys know, that's often my problem. Right now, I'm doing pretty good at catching numbers, but I'm struggling a little bit with getting that bigger than average fish. Usually to win or to place, you need at least one, you know, quite a bit bigger than average fish, and that's where I struggle. And this was a winner take all event, so only first place received the prize. This reminded me of something that the Apostle Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24 through 27. He writes through inspiration and says, "Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty, thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified." The Apostle Paul, by inspiration, is saying that everyone is running to obtain an imperishable crown. He's talking about eternal life. And he says that those who run that race for eternal life ought to run it with the mindset that there's no prize for second, for third, for fourth, but there's only one prize. Only one. Now, that's not to say that only one person will obtain eternal life. He's saying that the mindset there is you ought to run that race, strive for eternal life, like it's the only prize out there. There's nothing else. That's the message here. So even the Apostle Paul said to run this way that he had to discipline himself. He had to bring his body under subjection. He had to deny himself certain things, these earthly lusts that we often struggle with. Why did he do that? Because he didn't want to be disqualified. That's the word that's used there in the New King James, disqualified from the race. How sad that would be to be on the day of judgment to hear that you've been disqualified for something that you've done or how you've lived, to be disqualified from the race for that crown that's eternal. We ought to give our greatest effort to live a life for Christ. We ought to strive, as Paul did, to keep our bodies under subjection, to keep our actions under control, what we do, think, and say. That's not always easy, but it's something that we continue to work on day by day. And I hope that everyone who sees this video receives the prize, the eternal crown, that doesn't perish, that doesn't pass away. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time.